Done by Noon podcast. Today we're talking about EOS with Mark Henderson Leary.
You're listening to the Done by Noon podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to achieve more by noon than others in a full day. Serial entrepreneur Dave Ruel and his co-host Chris Lopez share the strategies that will help you optimize your productivity, performance, and lifestyle so you can reach new heights in your business and life. So if you're ready to become the most efficient and effective entrepreneur you know, you're in the right place. Welcome to the show.
Mark Henderson Leary. How you doing, my friend?
I'm fantastic.
Good,
It's
good.
a good jam. It opened us up with some good music. I'm in a good mood now. I'm ready to go.
I saw you dancing, man.
Yeah.
Amazing. Good moves. Good moves. Yeah. I had a hard time, describing exactly like all of you that you are, so it was like we could say either we can call you legend, international natural born legend, or leadership coach, entrepreneur, passionate about everything life and entrepreneurship, EOS implementer. We're going to talk a lot about EOS today because it was a game changer for me in my career. And it's the one thing that I think in our business that moved the needle quite a bit at Bioptimizers before I sold was implementing EOS. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But maybe give us the little rundown of, who are you, Mark Henderson Leary?
Who am I? Well, I'm a global phenomenon, as you pointed out. And so it's hard to kind of narrow it down.
You're bigger than Pitbull. You're more global than Pitbull.
I don't know that guy.
Who is this guy?
I'm sure if you'd like to make an introduction, I'll see if I can help him out a little bit.
I'll give him a call.
Well, no, I appreciate the introduction. And all kidding aside, I think talking about EOS and what that's done for somebody like me who has been serially imperfect and serially challenged with lots of learning and ceilings in my personal, professional life, EOS was a huge unlocking of trying to make sense of the world for me. As an entrepreneur, as an individual, leadership has always been a passion of mine. Management and the tools to do it, I just definitely underplayed and was underaware of how much magnitude there was there. I mean, Peter Drucker made an entire lifetime out of studying and codifying and putting a taxonomy to the concept of management. And so me as somebody who thought management was just like part of your title was way undergunned to be successful. And so having a tool set to make sense of all that and to give me all my energy back to lead my life and lead my business was just a total game changer.
So what was the let's say the aha moment when you were discovered EOS? Say, okay, well, that's the missing link.
Well, so it's a great question. So for me, I was the classic flavor of the month CEO. That is to say, I had a new tip or new trick every single month, and I was bringing it into the business, and I was so close, man. I just had the next sales technique, the next marketing program, the hiring system. This is it. We finally got it, and we're going to break through to the stratosphere. And, 7 short years later, I had gotten to the point where I had kind of what I would call a system of things that I had cobbled together that allowed me to run the business more simply. And so I sold the business. I was able to do that. And the company that bought my company trusted me enough, and I'm not sure why, but they did trust me enough to run the growth strategy for this new business that I didn't own. I wasn't a shareholder of that. And so I used the tools that I had collected to help collect their vision and put them into a position to execute. And we grew that business from about $7.5 million in services revenue to just under $20 million in services revenue just before I left. And I was really excited at that point that there was something fun about business that we could make a difference. And it was actually after that I found EOS. I had a few friends who'd been saying, "Man, you should be using this tool set." And I said, "Man, I got my tools. I don't need your stuff." And so 2 years of cajoling from different people all over the country who said, "Look, you should check this out." And when I did, it was just one of those moments of like, well, I don't know if you can say this, but truly it was like, shit. If I'd had this 10 years before, I would have a totally different life right now. And so my passion since then has been saying, look, if you want to get the most out of your business, which ultimately gives you that life you want, skip the 7 to 10 years and let's get these tools in place and let you really breathe and live and make it happen.
Yeah, that's exactly that was exactly my thoughts when I found EOS. And I think we all start with reading Traction, so which is the book written by Gino Wickman, and so creator of EOS, founder of EOS. And so EOS is an operating system. Maybe for those who don't know what EOS is, who haven't read Traction, who are one of the 3 people in the entire North America, or one of 3 entrepreneurs who don't know about EOS. Maybe Mark, if you could explain what it is exactly. What type of system is that?
Well, exactly what it is a system of tools, simple tools for every aspect of the business. Simple tools that help you create 3 things that we call vision, traction, and health. And what that means is starting with your leadership team, getting you guys, that team, you guys, you gals, all on the same page about where the company's going and how it's going to get there. What's the plan? Then we take that leadership team and get them the tools so they can get that traction, which is accountability, discipline, execution, getting it done. And then this third concept of health is when that team comes together, where it's this healthy, functional team and everybody's working together. But all too often, that's not what's happening at all. And so once that leadership team gets to that point, we get to the point where we bring it to the rest of the organization. So everybody can be crystal clear on your vision. Everybody knows where we're going. Everybody has got this consistent accountability, discipline, and gaining traction together. And the whole company is part of this amazing, healthy team where everybody's got a great role, great function, great contribution, and everybody loves working together, doing so much more as a team than a bunch of individuals running around. That's what it's about.
Yeah. It's a great system because there's 2 major pain points that every single entrepreneur will encounter in their careers. The first one is the part where you go from building to growing company, meaning you start the business, you're pretty much all by yourself or a limited number of people, you build it, and then you enter a phase where, okay, things start to, gain some steam. And now you have to get organized because you don't know as an entrepreneur how to, when you becoming an entrepreneur is a process by itself. And you realize that when you just stretch too thin and you end up, kind of running the whole show when you shouldn't, right? And understanding like the self-leadership part, becoming a good self-leader is the first step. But there's the second part here when you go from, I would say, growth to more to scale, which will bring another set of pain points in your business at this point, and you will need to become a better team leader. And this is what I found EOS does. It sets you up with the right systems in order to become a good team leader and build leadership overall within your organization. And for us, when we implemented it at Bioptimizers, and it was early on in the rebuild, where we grew fast when I took over in 2014, and within 18 months, we had grown to 3.2 million. But that meant onboarding a lot of people. That means, exactly like you said, getting people on board with a big, big vision and understanding how can we break it down into actually actions and cohesion between the whole team. And that's what EOS did perfectly. We became big fans. And the thing that when I started using EOS, or when I read Traction, was that it was so much, it was like finding the perfect companion to what we were doing at Ethic. So it wasn't Ethic at the time, but it was my kind of collections of, the collection of systems that I had in place. I was like, this is exactly, even the rocks, the Covey inspired rocks, I was like, this is so perfect. And it became kind of easy to implement it. And it made the world of a difference. I sold the company in 2016, but they still run on EOS. And it's a fantastic system.
Well, I want to unpack something you said a second ago. It's worth talking about. And what you described was, we need to, when you grow from an individual, well, the first step is from a regular human being to a foolishly inspired entrepreneurial human being. That's a whole journey in and of itself. So once you've made that, and Gino's got a new book for that called Entrepreneurial Leap to talk about whether you should even make that jump. But let's assume you've made that jump. from there, you're going to do this thing we call hitting the ceiling. And you described a really important aspect of hitting the ceiling. And that is, when you go from being an individual to having to lead and manage and inspire. But there's actually a lot more complexity than that. And that's plenty of complexity. Just getting to the point of each time you have to grow as a leader, because you're growing as an individual, then you're growing as a kind of leader manager to get some people to do what you want, and now eventually you get to the point where you got sort of managers and team leads who need to be inspired in a whole new way. They need to be taught how to do what you just figured out how to do. And so Michael Gerber unpacks that very well about how difficult it is to kind of scale as an entrepreneur and sort of let go of your old craft and your old skills and acquire all these new skills you never thought you needed. That's one element of hitting the ceiling. Every individual, every department, every company hits the ceiling in some way. And so in EOS, we talk about the 5 leadership abilities. And the 5 leadership abilities are the ways you got to cut through those ceilings that are coming at you pretty regularly. They don't just like sit on the sidelines for a decade. Some form of ceilings coming at you kind of all the time. So you got to simplify, you got to delegate, you got to predict, you got to systemize, and you got to create a structure. And those are the 5 leadership abilities you got to develop, because the simplification is never ending. Complexity is your enemy. It's totally exponentially makes it harder to deliver quality and consistency. Delegation. You got to enroll other people in your vision. You cannot do it by yourself. I've passed the first day. So you got to get really good at allowing people to help and do their part at their best and what the organization needs. Prediction. You got to be able to set long-term goals, and you got to set short-term execution goals every single week. You got to like that 20-mile march. You got to systemize. You got to do what all these great organizations where you visit the franchises and those big organizations, the Nordstroms and the Four Seasons and Chick-fil-A, these organizations where it's consistency all the time. You got to have those systems so it's easy enough to work there and get that experience that your customers and clients expect. And structure, you got to make sure this organization fits together in a way that's clear, simple, and efficient. And you got to be able to play the game like you play baseball. You have to have an organization that's as simple to understand as a baseball diamond. Those are the 5 leadership abilities you got to develop. And the tools in EOS are purpose built to bring all that out on an ongoing basis.
So having vision is one thing, and often as an entrepreneur, we're going to feed our own vision, right? We're going to see our own vision for yourself, and we're going to align our business decisions based on our personal vision, on our personal ambitions. When your business is hits a certain level of growth, and you realize that your business is kind of it's another person, it's an entity of its own. How do you go and define the vision, and what's the process at EOS to make sure you're always aligned, with that vision? How do you stay aligned?
I love the way you tee that up, because so many people do it the other way. I hear a lot of people with this in their head, that their business is an extension of them, that it is identified
to a certain
and unified.
Extent, to a certain level, but
I don't agree.
When you heat,
I don't agree. Here's how I say it. Your children have your DNA, but they are not you. And so they're going to act like you. You're going to understand them, but they're going to be self-sufficient as soon as you can get them to be self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have a future, and they're going to go a different direction. So you as a visionary are the parent of your organization. And so you're going to see yourself in it, and you're going to be a good steward of it. And so you're going to create core values, and you're going to understand the DNA, but it's also going to be something that can live and should be able to live very well without you and for its own purpose. And so understanding that if you think of it as yourself, you'll never let go of perfection. Everything will hurt too much. If you can think of your business as a child that needs to be able to move on without you on a day when you decide it's no longer your best life to be a part of it, that's the ability to let go. Now, it can still be sad, and it can still be important for you to understand that it's a reflection of your creativity, but it's not all of you. And you may need to find ways to satisfy all of you. If you are an adrenaline junkie, you may need to race your cars on the weekend and not expect your business to give you that same adrenaline if it's not really designed to do that for its best life.
That's what I'm saying. There's a breaking point at one point, with entrepreneurs where that the fact of being involved, I would say, of embodying the business, of trying to be everything for the business, will not work until a certain point. That's what I'm saying, is that you're no understanding that maybe that here's the thing, maybe your business will fulfill, a greater vision of where you want to go, or at one point it might be time that, okay, maybe I'm not the right person to be, the CEO, or to become, or to lead that business. You can still own it, you can still become an owner, or you can still have a role in your business, but maybe your role will have to change, within the business, because that business has become its own entity with its own, its own dream, or not its own dreams, but its own
Absolutely.
goals and vision, right? So I think, and you're right, that and a lot of people are not willing to do that. A lot of people are not willing to make that step.
Well, I think a lot of people are willing if they can get their mind around the idea, because a lot of people aren't exposed to the idea. And so what's your favorite sports team?
Oh, the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay. So what's the, may say 10 years ago, what was the goal of the Montreal Canadiens? What was their big goal?
It's always to win the Stanley Cup.
Always to win the Stanley Cup. Absolutely. So if the owners of that organization sell it because it's time for them to leave, what is the new goal of the Montreal Canadiens? To win the Stanley Cup. Like, nothing changed. So you have to understand that there's a soul of the organization. Let it live it, and everybody, the fans, the players, the owners, they all share in it, even if the seasons of life take us in and out of the organization. That's the way to think of it.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that we just so attached with it, so attached to the business. And I always say, what type of person do you want to be for your business? Do you want to be a babysitter, or do you want to be a parent? Right? And the truth is, not everybody can be a good parent, and sometimes it's better off to hand it off to someone else, you know what I mean? Or make the right decisions and, build systems around it that will allow you to do that. So my point is there, I want to make, Mark, is that you will come to a critical stage in your business where you will need to evaluate where you want to go with that business. And a lot of entrepreneurs like reach that point and they can grow or they don't scale just because they hang on to think like they want to, they want to babysit. And this is when, you have to understand your role in the business. And what I love about what Gino teaches, especially about visionary and integrator, is understanding maybe the new role you will need to have in your business. Maybe you will need to partner up with someone who has a greater vision. Some people I hear, like guys like, for example, Tucker Max at Scribe and guys like that, who fired themselves from being CEO. They were like, I'm not the right guy to be the CEO of this company. However, they still own the company, but they partnered up with different people who were able to bring the company to another level.
So one way I think it helps people unpack that a little bit is that there's two sets of objectives that are combined. It's not one. It's not like this company needs me or it doesn't. It is the company needs what it needs and you need what you need. We have to have both, and we can get both. And when we pursue both, honestly, we start to see either I need a different role, or I am the right person in the right role. I need somebody else to join me, or I need to move on, because we can have both, and we are different. Like, once you have real clarity of your unique ability, which is a Dan Sullivan term, but you know what you do best and your biggest contributions. I mean, think about how many talented performers are out there who are musicians and actors and authors and songwriters. And they all, the ones make their name in one of those skills, right? And when you have like a Justin Timberlake or somebody who kind of you're like, well, actually, he can do anything, it's a really mind blowing to realize how many talents they have, and they really made their name in one area. So you, as a visionary entrepreneur, have to kind of make those same choices. And the more comfortable you are with understanding your biggest impact, separating that out from what does the organization need, you flow into an owner's box, or you flow into an individual contributor, or you flow into a new. And you can have both, because there's other people who can carry the load of the business, because the business can make clear what it needs if you're willing to listen to it.
For us, like at Bioptimizers, when we realized, like, actually even it was before that, was Balboa with Matt, is understanding our unique abilities and who was the visionary in that business and who was the integrator. And
Yeah.
when we realize our natural abilities and we completely own that skills and we implemented, the systems to, I would say the biggest challenge with that, maybe we can explain what, visionary integrators are, but the biggest challenge with that was for me as an integrator, that was my role. And that was filtering really the visionaries' ideas or overabundance of ideas most of the time, so we could
Sure.
stay on track. That's what EOS did really well. But maybe you can explain the difference
Yeah,
between
man,
the
love to.
visionary and the integrator.
Yeah, no, I'm passionate about the subject, so you might have to kind of rein me in because
I love
it's
it.
not only such an important conversation, it's where business owners get stuck the most because there is some head trash. I mean, what I experienced in the first 4 years of helping companies get what they want by implementing EOS, the first couple of years were just marked with the light bulb going on. Oh, the integrator. Oh my gosh, that unlocks the secrets to why I've been stuck. And I was like, great, I'm helping everybody break through. 2 years later, I was like, why are you people still stuck? And so they had unlocked the secret, but they had failed to execute on the secret. So I have a passion around helping people kind of unlock that. So let's take a step back to what is the visionary and what is the integrator. And these are terms that Gino made famous in traction and in rocket fuel. But they're roles and functions that are timeless through history. We've got plenty of data to see what these look like, and you probably know what at least what the visionary looks like. And so the visionary is a classic example is a Walt Disney, right? So I have this little video clip I show people sometimes, and you can find it on the internet with Walt Disney talking about, well, it's really, there's this guy, Roy, his brother, Roy Disney, and he's been with me for 20 years. He's my older brother. Every crazy idea I've had, he just says no to, and I sometimes I got to fight with him for 2 years. He looks at, his words were like, he looks after the finances and the corporate stuff. And he's like, he does like the business thing,
the stuff.
Yeah, and so a 20-year journey of him just sort of wrestling with somebody who's slowing him down and pushing his ideas back. And he's actually describing Roy. He said, in this latest project, I didn't really have to fight with Roy on too much, and I don't know whether that's good or bad, but we got this deal done pretty easily. That was Walt Disney World, which turned out okay. So it's such an honest example of somebody being outwardly focused, inspired by taking a bigger and bigger bite of the future, emotionally motivated, can't move fast enough, just got to get this done, polarized by somebody who equally shares the vision. This is a really important part. And this is not your nemesis. This is somebody who equally shares the vision, but has the opposite polarity of, tell me about 19 of those 20 ideas. Did you think about step 2? And no, I didn't. Okay, I'll get back to you on that. But let's go. This last one is ready to go. Yes, this one actually, let's talk more about that. And let's talk about the next 25 steps. Oh, I only had 3 steps in my mind. And that's me, right? So I'm the classic visionary. I'm classically guilty of all you got to do is just take this one more thing and just knock it out. And what I need constantly is that polarity of, well, let me ask you a couple questions. Let's get you on the path, but let's ask a couple questions. What's the next several steps, and what's going to happen if we do this? Oh, this is going to take longer than I thought. So the integrator is ultimately this leader. So Roy Disney was not like his assistant, right? Roy Disney ran the business, and all of those other big company stories. You think of Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. The polarity. People, one person outside the business, one person inside the business. Real legit leaders who bring the organization harmony and leadership and remove those obstacles. Visionary entrepreneurs are historically horrible at this. History tells this story over and over again because there's actually plenty of data to say that visionaries are actually maybe a little crazy at their best. There's a book called The Hypomanic Edge that talks about that exact phenomenon. Like not too crazy, but a little crazy.
Which just a little crazy.
Exactly. Which means management and patience that are required to execute and make sure the trains are running on time is not in their capacity, and that's okay. We got to have them.
So, I love that. And I love that you use the example of Steve Jobs and Tim Cook, because now the funny thing is that Tim Cook moved to CEO of Apple, and technically is into more of a visionary
Yeah.
role right now. And I think, and that's yeah, like my question is that, can a visionary be an integrator and vice versa, or how, like,
Yeah.
what's
Great
the
question.
line between, because for some people it's very clear. It's like, oh, you're a visionary and you're like a 95%, 99% visionary. There's no way you're going to be an integrator ever. But some people, it's very like they could be easily a 50-50. So it's like, how do they decide what to take on? And what I would say, how do you
Yeah.
decide?
So a couple of examples. So Gino was the very first integrator in his world because he took over running his dad's company, and he discovered and coined the terminology, or at least kind of codified it in the EOS capacity, that his dad was this amazing inspirational visionary, and Gino became this amazing integrator, making things happen. They were able to grow the business and sell it and retire. It was awesome. So then Gino's now excited about his obsession with making the sense of the art and science of what it is to grow a successful business, and he's obsessed with the vision. Well, now he's lost his ability to really turn around, sit down, and kind of finish all the details in the spreadsheet. So you can be capable of each. What's really hard is both, because it's almost like, I mean, you can think of it in very simple terms, that you can look forward, and looking back is very hard. You can turn around and look back. That's easy. But looking behind you, which is now forward, is really hard. So it's almost like the blood has to reverse course in your veins if you're going to do one or the other. And so to be one, you need the other. And so if you have visionary capacity, but you have integrator capacity, and you've got a visionary who fires you up, your visionary instincts just settle down. You're like, cool, I got a kick-ass vision, and I know, and I can follow you, and I'm going to make it happen. You have to be plugged into the right visionary. But if you do, you can do that. It's very, very difficult to do both. Some people who can do both can do them to a point, because at some point the company's stresses are too much for you to be able to do both. And every organization who's ever been created from a single individual upward has had to do that, right? And the only question is, can you get it to 15 million in revenue, which is extraordinarily rare and actually very difficult when you do. If you can run a business as a single leader to 15 million in revenue without splitting it up, when you have to crack it open, it's so uncomfortable. And all the organization is uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. You're used to being able to just turn the crank faster and get it done. And it's very awkward. More commonly, somewhere between 1 and 5 million is where a leader says, like, this is killing me. I'm not that good. I can't, as soon as it's like there's any revenue involved, I need somebody to look make sure I'm getting it done.
I love it, man. Yeah, it happened to me like when I was in the integrator seat at Bioptimizers. My visionary side, Matt was such a strong visionary, still is one of the best, most complete visionaries that I ever known, and I was kind of, I had to suppress that, what I mean, this side. So I had to become really integrator, but I missed my visionary side, right? And now at Epic, I'm really working on visionary, and I'm not reintegrator. I don't do a lot. Still take care of some things, but not that much, for the size of the company. But it's such a it's the missing ingredient. Well, that's how they call it in Rocket Fuel. Great book too, Traction Rocket Fuel, must reads if you're growing a business, and that's going to make you understand. Okay, yeah, and that's going to dictate like really what you, or what kind of, if you have both tendencies, really what you like to do the most. Are you the guy who comes up with the ideas, who likes to drive the vision forward and go fast and move and come up with ideas, or you're the person that loves that, to organize everything, put all the blocks at the right place, and making sure the business runs properly. And at this point, you might become, well, that's the thing with ownership. That's what I like about EOS, is that it's not just the integrator that owns the system. The visionary owns the system as well. It involves everybody and everybody's buy-in to bring this kid to adulthood, or this baby to become a functional human, right?
Well, that's actually an understated point as well. And because the visionary, I guess there's an ego and a patronage to the founder, right? So
Yes.
so we want to give that due honor to the visionary. But when we do this right, we have the leadership team in the room, and we're doing deep work for our quarterlies and annuals. That vision doesn't just like get birthed by the visionary monolithically over and over again. It's a collaboration of friction where we co-build an ingredient that oftentimes the visionary is sort of the final say on. And so there is some new collaboration that happens when you get a team really healthy, and the visionary creating what I call the visionary fuel and the visionary inspiration, and it's raw material that allows this team, especially an integrator, to put the proper friction in and test things out and try things. Not everything works, and we experiment and we all agree that was terrible, or we agree that was great. And so as a group, it's a different thing. And so I just want to kind of make sure that people are aware that we really create a whole new animal with the leadership team when we get people in the right roles, including that visionary. The visionary does hold oftentimes, because this is a concept that, again, that I don't think people talk a lot about. And I can't give it due credit because I can't remember where I first read this article, but it talked about the idea of real vision creation and innovation as not being a collaborative endeavor at all. That a true visionary is in their own universe and putting a lot of pieces together in their own way. And I do believe that. I do believe that the visionary at their best is, and this is a strong statement. This is not a Gino statement or anybody in the U.S. I believe of the visionary in most organizations as the high priest of all that's right and wrong in the organization. Now, it's collaborative in terms of how it's fleshed out and it's tested and pushed back, but the person who in the end is going to go to their gut as the final tiebreaker of like, I'm not going to explain myself, but we're not doing it. Or I am not going to explain myself, but we are going to push through until this cracks open. I do think that is an individual leadership thing that's not like a consensus activity. And so you have this strange polarity that I just described of that visionary is just pulling and from their soul, and you got a leadership team who's collaborating and agreeing on pieces of this and sometimes getting overruled.
Yeah. It is. There's a dance, to have there, and but the main role of the integrator is really to more than often to make sure we don't drift, to make sure that the company stays on course with the vision, because sometimes the visionary can be the greatest gift to the company, but can also become, detrimental at one point if the ideas are too much, or if it doesn't want to continue with the vision or move to, when the innovation that's a thing where, the fine line between great innovation that's going to disrupt and then staying on course, and how do you decide, right? And how you move the ship, right? And it's.
So I think Mark Winters first said it. Or if not, he should give it credit to somebody. The biggest threat to a visionary's big idea is his or her next big idea. So, and almost everyone I've ever said to is just sort of like, oh, darn it. That happened to me like over and over again. So there is a complex chemistry. I can describe in very objective terms what a visionary and integrator is. And most people get it immediately. But in terms of reality of what that looks like, it's this concept of the puzzle piece. It's each visionary is a unique animal, and they need a puzzle piece match of the opposite that shares the same vision. And it's a real chemistry experiment to find that, because we talk about being a little crazy as a visionary. Well, not all visionaries are a little crazy. Some of them are a lot crazy. And so we have to have that polarity to match. And if we don't balance it out, we won't see success. That's my experience. Or I see people just kind of fits and starts. They just like, imagine like a truck with a trailer with 1,000,000 horsepower, and the truck just floors it and just rips it right off the trailer, and the trailer is sitting in the dirt. And like, well, that's not a vision, right? We need to have the right horsepower matched up with the right trailer and the right hitch and all this kind of stuff. So understanding the balance there. And sometimes visionaries, honestly, I mean, Gino says this all the time. If you don't have a therapist in your back pocket, you're missing out, because we're all a little bit crazy if we're trying to make a difference. And so I do think you need to have coaches and systems and processes, and you need to look in the mirror as a visionary, because it's really easy to lose sight of that, and have one formula that you always go back to. And this is my formula that I've gotten from coaches, and it's turned into my one rule in my training room. And the one rule is this: if it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, do less of it. So you have to, as a visionary, you got to have a grounding in the question of, am I going in the right direction? Is this working? And if the answer is no, you got to take a step back and observe and find out why. Get a coach, go back to your integrator. If you don't have an integrator, that's a clue. You need that. So find a way to get some perspective and observation on what you're doing if it's not working, and be honest if it's not working.
I love it, Mark. I think there's 3 books that I highly recommend that you read. The first one, we talked about it, the Hypomanic Edge. Who wrote that again? I can't remember the name of the author. The Hypomanic Edge. Let me Edge. That's John Gartner. John Gartner, and pretty much says that we're mostly entrepreneurs, and it's all has to do with because of a mix of of DNA and a mix of where we're from and the risk that people had to take crossing the pond, to move to a new. I mean, there's all different factors. That's why in America, like entrepreneurship is so much, is the way it is, and that we're pretty much all a little bit crazy and hypomania and things like that. So
I believe that freedom is what America, United States is formed on this concept of freedom. I think it's a mislead. I think it's more around this idea of the ethos of entrepreneurship. I don't think we just want liberty. I think we had a purpose in our liberty. I think we were willing to take risks for a better life and to make the world a better place. And I think that entrepreneurship is, to me, a closer description of what we're trying to do. We're trying to take some partially broken pieces of the world and make them a little bit better and make something we want out of the parts we've got. And so I do think that's built into the ethos of what we do.
Yeah, it's going to make you think also. It's like, okay, well, the things you might be doing right now, you're like, and you think you're like not like everyone else, or you think like you're thinking differently. But that book is like, okay, well, maybe because you're a little bit nuts, and that's normal, and that's right, and that's good, and here's how to use it properly. And I really like that book. It really talked to me. Second one, Rocket Fuel, Visionary Integrator combo. I think that's great, and I think that's gonna set the tone for traction, which is
sure.
I think that you should read. I think once you read that, especially Rocket Fuel Traction, you're like, okay, I need that in your business. I think well, this is when you come in, Mark. You're an EOS implementer. So what do you do practically with EOS? Like, let's say you have a client who's like, Mark, I need this. What's the process you go through?
What's the process I go through? So there is a very consistent, well-defined process that we go through to make sure all the boxes are checked. We are going to first set some tools in place so you can get some stuff done. Because when you come to me, or a company comes to me in any state, there's what I call the implicit vision. You have a basic idea of where you're going and why you're going to get there. And so I'm not going to tinker with that just yet. We are going to put some tools in place to get absolutely crystal clear on accountability, focus, execution, communication. And that's going to turn all the lights on. And you're going to be able to see all this stuff. And you're not going to be able to unsee it. It's going to be a little frustrating. It's going to be a little bit scary. And so that's okay, though. So, because now we got all news is good news. Right. So like it was true before you knew about it. Now, okay, we got some problems, and that allows us to set some real clear vision from there. We come back, 30 days later, and we're going to do some work around vision. 30 days after that, we're going to do some more work on vision, all on this foundation of execution. And so once we got these tools in place, we turn it into a quarterly pulse with an annual component to it. But all we're doing in this process is, like I said, turning the lights on about what's working, what's not. And then we're going to get some real honest questions about what do you want from your business and what do you want from your life. And we're going to be on the path to set the bar quarter after quarter, one quarter at a time, to work towards getting that. It's the only proven way to do it. And it works every time. Guaranteed. In fact, there's a guarantee in what I do, because it just does always work.
It works. It works. And honestly, like if you want to shortcut your implementation of EOS, like you can read the book, you can get some nuggets and you can implement some things, but invest in a good EOS implementer. Mark is a good EOS implementer. Give him a call and he will guide you through the process, because that is so important you're going to save so much time, so much energy. in trying to do it, rather than trying to do it yourself, like having the right guidance. And once it's there and it's implemented and it's, really ingrained into the company, that doesn't go away. This becomes really like the moving force, operational force of the company. This is what's going to make it grow, a lot faster, a lot more systematically and sustainably than, for you trying to wing it and go back to old habits.
Yeah. So the tools are out there, and I love it when people use the tools on their own. And not everybody is in a spot where, if there's, the idea of EOS is really built for companies between 10 and 250 employees. Now, I work with some smaller and some much, much larger, actually. But that's what the language is built for. And sometimes people below that, they kind of got to scrap their way to a spot where they can get there. But people who are on the bubble, and you don't have to work with me. I mean, I love working with especially purpose-driven companies. And there's lots of great people out there who you can work with. Do ask yourself the question: if you were to go fishing, and you were going to, do fly fishing or deep sea fishing, doesn't matter, but hard fishing, not just like a little pond, it's like like real kind of fishing. Do you want to be on the journey of when you get to that river for the first time? Would you be rather handed a map, or are you the kind of person who would like a guide who can tell you where to put your hook and tell you how to catch fish and help you understand what's going on? And that's not a judgment, right? So some people are like, oh, just give me the map. On the tent, I'll be out here for a week, and by the time I come back, it'll be I won't have caught a single fish, but I'll know the land, and it'll be exciting. If that's you, then own it, and that's fine, because there really are people who like that. Other people like, I just would like to catch the fish, please. I've only got 3 days on this trip. I want to catch some fish, and then the guide is the right call for that person. So finding the right guide, that's an important part of the process. Somebody you think can bring the best out in you, who's willing to guarantee it. That's a big part of it. And so just use your judgment on the basis of what outcome you're trying to create.
So how can people get in touch with you, Mark? And first of all, let's plug in your podcast, because you have a great podcast.
Oh, yeah,
so maybe, it's called You're Doing It Wrong. It's a great podcast. So how can people listen to the podcast, but also know more about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. So if you search for Mark Henderson Leary, you'll find me. My website is leary.cc. My stuff's there. And if a /podcast is added at the end, you'll get the podcast. But all my podcasts are available anywhere podcasts are available, like Apple and Spotify and all those places.
Mark, my friend, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was absolute gold. Pleasure to have you here. And I hope we talk soon, my friend.
Absolutely. I'm sure we will. I appreciate the time, and it's a real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You have just listened to the Done by Noon podcast. If you are interested in hearing more, do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Click on the 5 stars or check out our free tools and trainings at donebynoonpodcast.com. Thanks again for listening, and stay awesome. We'll see you next time.